Welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van We moeten het over literatuur hebben. De podcast waarin literatuurliefhebbers vertellen wat hen inspireerde om met literatuur aan de slag te gaan. Hun verhalen laten zien hoe boeken en verhalen passie kunnen ontketenen. En hopelijk motiveren en inspireren ze ook jou om die wereld te ontdekken. Okay, so today we speak with Iulian Bocai, Romanian novelist, essayist, critic, and translator, author of The Strange and Moving Life of Prita Barsacu. I read it in Dutch, but I tried to pronounce it in do I pronounce it well?
No, it's hard. It's hard to pronounce even in Romanian. It's Prita Barsacu.
Okay, so like that. A book that blends darkness, humor, mythology, and memory into a poignant portrait of childhood and survival. Recently writer in residence at Passaporta, Bocai is known for his sharp eye, his melancholic tone, and his belief in the strange but meaningful coincidences that shape both life and literature. Welcome, Iulian. I'm very pleased to have you in my channel. How are you doing? Everything all right there in Romania?
Yeah, it's very nice. Thank you for the invitation. It's very nice to be here.
With pleasure. I read your book, The Strange and Moving Life of Prita Barsacu. I loved it, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, and I'm absolutely honored. We're gonna talk about that surely in this conversation, but the thing I want to start with, we're gonna take a step back in the time, and your youth times. You grew up in Oltenia, a region you later revisited in the story of Prita Barsacu. When did literature first came in your life at the beginning?
Well, my mother, there wasn't much reading being done in my household generally when I was growing up, because I come from a very working class environment, and especially my grandparents wouldn't read much. But my mother did read, and she would read mostly romance, late 19th century French stuff, or early 19th century like Stendhal or Balzac. And I started reading that, Eugénie Grandet especially, or Benjamin Constant, Adolphe. I think I read that when I was 13 or something, and I fell in love with it then. Because they were talking about love in this very highfalutin manner, which I liked, and I started with that. But then I became interested in more realist stuff. But I started reading pretty early, if that's the question.
Okay, that's like I had a conversation before with one who studies like the 19th century French literature. And isn't it also with Alexandre Dumas and stuff, the Count of Monte Cristo? Isn't that the same time or stuff?
Yeah.
I heard a lot of those books, and there are loads of things that are very important in the day we live in today. I heard from that person.
Oh, you mean that the books are very important for what we're doing today?
Yeah.
Well, I read them when I was very little, and they influenced me in the sense that they became my go-to fiction whenever I wanted to read anything. And up to this day, I think French realism from Balzac to Flaubert, and Russian realism from maybe, I don't know, Gogol to Dostoevsky has been my literary mainstay. So whenever I think about great literature, I get back to that, mostly because it has influenced me so greatly when I was growing up.
And do you remember what you felt when you read those books? Like, what did it to your emotional state or your life at that time?
No, I think what interested me about them was they spoke about love very openly, in a way. And I remembered that. But then I got interested into realism mainly because I thought it gave a good literary representation of human suffering, especially Russian realism, not so much the French one. So I became interested in that. But it started as all teenage interests start. That is, it talked about love, and then it developed into a more competent discourse about the complexity of human existence, I think.
Okay, and when did writing came at first in your life then? Because you read a lot and then, yeah.
I did read a lot. I I think it started with poetry. I started writing poetry
Okay.
when I was 15 and did that for about 12 years until I was 27.
Like the romantic poetry, as you say, like
No,
the
no,
love
no.
stories and stuff, or
So no, I've read a lot. So mostly modernist poetry. By the time I started writing it, I think I was 15, 16. I was in a sort of symbolist phase, so writing about death and destruction and sadness. But that's a very teenage thing to do, isn't it?
okay, or like already thinking of the meaning of life and stuff, like
Yeah,
what
but
that meant to you, and
it was naive and childish, and I think I like to suffer a little bit, although I didn't know the meaning of suffering that well. But it started like that.
okay. And did you feel when you did that stuff, like writing the poetry, did you feel that you had a feeling of resistance to become like a writer? Why didn't you like publish at that time?
Oh no, it's good that I didn't publish because the poetry wasn't good.
Okay.
So it was bad
Yeah.
poetry essentially. It was mostly about how I felt about the world. But I
Mhm.
think I did that for a long time and I wrote badly for a long time. And writing bad poetry for a long time does probably make you a better prose writer in that sense. So it
Okay.
wasn't it wasn't useless that I did it.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn then? When you wrote that poetry, did you learn something from what you write today now?
Yeah, you learn how to structure language according to sound. And in my prose, I
Okay, yeah.
still, I still, I still have that. And you also learn how to very metaphorically express states of affection or states of mind, and that is very good if you're writing anything really.
Okay, yeah. And we can continue with your book Prita Barsacu because that was your debut.
Hmm.
Um, it draws from a harsh reality but transforms it into something mythic. It was like I heard it from loads of people here in Belgium. They read it and they were like, "It's phenomenal what he wrote. It's a story I have never read before. It's something strange you do with it. It's something you turn it into mythic, at times even comic." When did this
Hmm.
story first came to you then?
When did it come to me? Well, it didn't have to come to me because it's the place I grew up in. So
Mm-hmm.
I carry those stories. That's not the only story of the time I've written. That region, Oltenia, with its poverty and the type of people who grew
Mm-hmm.
up there, appears in most of my books, one way or another, because I was so in love with it growing up. And it was the freest time I've ever had as a child. You went there, and suddenly the rules you were used to growing up in the city that no longer applied. And that gave you great freedom, and you could do whatever you wanted for a full day length.
Mm-hmm.
And I carried that with me forever. And I always knew that somehow I would write about it. It just happened later than I thought. So the stories didn't have to be found. I didn't have to think the stories up because the stories were already there.
Yeah, and as you say that the stories were already there, you've mentioned that the book is an amalgam of several real individuals. So
Mhm.
individuals you have known. Are those individuals people you have met like not long ago, or are they all from your youth, or how?
No, they're from my early childhood. So
Okay.
most of them are dead. They
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even know I've written about them.
Okay, and as you say that, do you feel like something of a personal responsibility to write correctly about those people, or do you play some
No,
fiction with it, or
no, I do. I do fictionalize a lot. So there's a lot of lying and there's a lot of changing of lives. So it's not true in the immediate way. It's true in a very metaphorical, general way. That is, the world is true. The world is true to what it was.
Mhm.
Uh, I do not feel that responsibility. That is, I do not feel the responsibility to change the life of individual people I've met because I don't use them that much in prose. But I do feel the responsibility of taking the truth of that kind of environment and portraying it correctly in a way.
Okay, yeah. And how did it feel like correctly for you, this story? Did you, in one moment or something, hesitate about the story you have written, about the structure and like the way you wanted to tell it?
No, I've written it 80 years ago, and I don't remember what I felt when I wrote it
Yeah.
or when I hesitated. But what I do remember is what happens with all of my books. That is, I know it's right when when it endears me somehow, when it gives me a feeling of warmth. That is, I haven't
Okay.
betrayed the stories that I want to tell because there's some warmth in them. You know, I haven't made them cold. So in that sense, that's when I know.
Okay. Yeah. And something special in this book is that the story starts with Prita that falls into the water or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, it starts with the death. Like you said before, you were like writing poetry, and you were thinking about what is the meaning of death and stuff like that.
hmm
But how does tragedy shape narrative truth for you in this story?
How does tragedy shape narrative truth? I'm not really sure. I don't think. I think tragedy shapes life in general. And if you want to write about life, you're going to write about tragedy, no matter what you do. Because writing about happiness is not really interesting, is it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
happiness is a one-state affair. It becomes boring after a while. What did he do? He was happy and he toasted some bread, and that's it. That's the story. Whereas tragedy involves some kind of mobility, in a sense, mobility of feeling or mobility of action. So you are tempted to write about tragedy because it's the most memorable thing to write about. How
Mm-hmm.
does it structure the narrative? I am not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
That is, the narrative must, if you're writing about, I feel that if you're writing about any tragedy, the narrative must be uh, imbued with some sort of affection. I
Okay.
feel that's true.
And that kind of affection, does humor and stuff like that also go together with that? Because there is also humor in your story, right? And that affection, does humor also goes together with that?
Yeah, I think what humor does is it balances the tragedy out. That it outweighs the bleakness of the story.
Hmm?
Because tragedies can be very bleak. But if you're growing up in the Northern Balkans like I did, humor is part of it, you know. There's no pain that is so everlasting or so profound that it couldn't be interrupted by a moment of irony or a
Mm-hmm.
moment of laughter.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Yeah, and also as you say, like when you write a story about tragedy and it's all about tragedy and the darkness and stuff, it's like not easy to read, I think.
No, it's not. And the thing is, and I've gotten this especially by readers in the West that they think it's a very dark story, but I've I meant to do it very light, a light-hearted version of it. That is, I've put a lot of love into it. I think there is a lot of happiness there. And people in Romania, where this kind of story is somewhat traditional about village life with all its issues, sort of get the humor more than people in the West. The people in the West, I think readers in the West are more focused on the very dire social aspects of it.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I want to zoom in on that. Like, how did people in Romania receive this book? How did they read it? Was it like you wrote that story and you thought they're gonna like this or that, or how did it work
No,
over there?
I think they saw it as bittersweet in a way.
Okay.
That is,
Yeah.
there is bitterness in it, but there's also sweetness and humor in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a
Is
combination.
it something special in Romania, like to publish a book like this? I don't know how the
No,
reading culture is
I
over
don't.
there, but
I don't think it's special. The subject matter is somewhat traditional. That is,
okay.
village life has been so hugely influential in Romanian culture, and it has been so widely portrayed in Romanian literature ever since the beginning, that a book like this just is read uh, differently when it's read here because everybody connects it to
Mm-hmm.
the entire
Yes.
history of literature. Whereas rural literature in the West is a 18th century thing, early 19th century thing. So
Yeah, it's like I understand what you say. How is it then for you that your book got translated into Dutch, like over here, het aangrijpende leven van Prita. You can
mhm,
pronounce that title in Dutch, right?
het
I saw it in the
vreemde en
Passaporta.
aangrijpende wel. Ja,
Yeah.
ja,
So how is it for you? that people read your book like in other cultures and like they feel something different about it? How do you experience that
Well,
yourself?
I think they're attracted to the fact that they do not know the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas people and readers in Romania are attracted to the fact that they know it very well. So that's the difference. There's a certain exoticism, maybe, in the
Mm-hmm.
West when you read something like this.
Yeah, okay. Are there loads of authors in Romania? I don't know that stuff.
Uh, what you mean? In what way?
Like
Lots of them.
writers in Romania, real Romanian writers like you
Yeah,
write in Romania.
there's a few. Yeah, there's a
Okay.
lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know in different countries or stuff if there are loads of authors like in Belgium I know, but like in other cultures I don't know. I had a conversation before with someone who lives in Belgium now. I don't know
Mhm.
you will know him, Alexander Skorobogatov.
Oh, I've heard about him. Yeah, is he?
Yeah, and
Is
he lived in a place where it was like difficult to be a writer, and there weren't loads of writers. So that's always interesting to talk about. But you also went to Passaporta, as you mentioned before.
Mhm.
Was it nice for you to be in Brussels then? What was it for you?
Yeah, I didn't click with Brussels as much as I wanted to. It's a nice city. It felt a little, I don't know why. I I
Okay, yeah.
I wish I would have liked it better. I
Uh-huh.
think I'm more a fan of Rome or Athens or generally Southern European cities.
Yeah, I read that you had like strange coincidences over there, like
Mhm.
involving your Dutch translator and a Persian restaurant, and a
Mhm.
book you were translating. Can you tell
Mhm.
something more about that?
Well, I knew Charlotte van Roden is the Dutch translator of Prita
Yeah.
Barsacu, and we grew very friendly during the last 5 years since we met. Because she initially wrote to me in 2000, I think it was 2020. She wanted to translate the book back then, but it took 5 years for it to get done. So we grew friendly, and I knew she was going to come to Brussels to talk about it and talk about other Romanian books she's going to translate. And I was translating then a book from German by Ina Kaya, I think,
Okay.
in Herzen der Katze. So it was about Persia. And when in Brussels, I saw a Persian restaurant in the city center, and the book I was translating had a lot of paragraphs about Persian food. So I remembered
You
to go to
needed to
that.
visit it.
Yeah, yeah, I needed to visit it, but I didn't want to go alone because it was very expensive, and I had to. And I said, Charlotte, I'm going to wait for you, and I'm going to take you to this restaurant when you come. And when she came, we both went there. But it turns out that she was translating the same book as I was. Yeah,
What? How is
yeah.
it, how is that possible? Like at the
Yeah,
same
it's
time or stuff?
weird. Yeah, it was at the exact same time. And I told her that, and she was, no, that's not possible. And I told her that's precisely why I brought you to the Persian restaurant because
So
I
you
was
were
translating
both
the,
going to the restaurant to know the
yeah,
culture, right?
yeah. So that was weird.
Yeah, and then you had like a conversation with Jeroen Teunissen, as we said before. Was it also about your book, Prita Barchaku?
Yeah, that's the only thing I can talk about there because it's my only translated book.
Okay, but you wrote other books also. I saw it, but they are not already translated in Dutch.
No,
But
no, no.
they are gonna
Char-
come soon, I hope.
Charlotte is working, has translated a fragment from my second novel for Sila and also has translated two of my short stories for my latest book. She's probably going to try and publish those.
Okay, yeah. So as I understand, you started poetry. You wrote Prita Barchaku, but you also write essays and short stories, and you are writing like loads of different stuff. Do you combine them? Like, do you write at the same time a novel and short stories, or do you like
Yeah,
write them in separate times?
no, I do combine them because I can never figure out what I want, especially with novels. Novels take a long time, and until you finish one, you stop a lot, you sort of reconsider or change your mind, and there's a lot of dead intervals in the writing of novels, and you can sneak a lot of things in there, like essays and stuff like that. So I do.
Okay.
No, please.
Yeah, like you said essays, and it's interesting because you mentioned that when you wrote poetry, you wrote about like the meaning of that, the meaning of life, and you find that that wasn't as important as you like wanted, but in your essays you like talk about life stuff. And how did you start writing those things when you like didn't like them in your first years, like?
Well, I'm wiser now, I think, and I've also read.
Okay, it's the age.
It's the age. It is unfortunately the age. You the way when you're very young, you write in order to somewhat like a rebel in order to spite the world. But when you're older, I think you start writing in order to understand it, and I
Okay.
think that that's probably what's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And you
It's an
need to
interesting
understand.
one.
Yeah, and you need to understand it, especially in prose.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And what do you mean by that? Like you need to understand it in
that is,
prose?
in poetry, you can do a lot with language and not directly refer to the world. You can play around with metaphor. You can play around with feelings. You can make it very lyrical. You can, it doesn't necessarily have to be immediately understandable. Whereas in prose, I think it has to reflect the world no matter what you do. And in order to reflect the world, you have to give it some effort.
Okay, now I'm getting curious about like I wrote Prita Barsacu, but your other work, what is it about? Like your novels?
Well, my second novel, which came a year after Prita, is about poverty, but this time in Bucharest. That is
Okay.
about a guy moving to Bucharest from the region where Prita was placed and trying to survive there while studying, and he does a poor job of it. And my third one, which came out this year, is mostly about sexuality and desire and love. So I've changed it a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to say it like it's a different theme. Is it because you have the feeling that you wrote enough about those themes that you mentioned with Prita and your second book?
No, I do wanted to write something very different, it's true. And I mostly wanted to write about feelings and about growing up sexually ambiguous and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that when I wrote the first two novels I wanted them to necessarily be about poverty. I didn't. I wanted them to portray a world and that world just happened to be poor.
Okay. Yeah. I have read that you have written that coincidence promises inevitability. Do you know what you like? Can you tell something more about it? Because that's an interesting sentence. Because you talk now about the different stories you have written.
Hmm.
Like,
Well,
what do you mean about that?
I think what stories generally reality has no ending in a way. The world does not end, whereas books do have ending.
Okay.
And when you place reality inside a story, it makes it seem like reality itself ends somewhat, like you've solved the
Okay.
enigma of it. Whereas where you live, when you live, where you just look at the world, nothing really ends. There's no finish line to it. You know, it just goes on. Whereas what you do in stories is you sort of take that feeling of never ending reality and you sort of give it a finishing touch and you say, well, this is it. This is the life. It begins here, it ends here, and that's all of it, you know. It sort of makes sense. But in order to structure lived life into some form of narrative, you have to make it look like it makes sense. The,
Okay.
and in order to make life makes sense, you sort of have to structure it somehow symmetrically. That
Mm-hmm.
is, it begins somewhere, it ends somewhere. It is about something, you know. The same, it revolves around the same places or the same characters and stuff like
Okay.
that. And what that does is it creates coherence. You know.
Okay. And do you think that you can write with coincidence then? If you say like that, you need a structure, but is it possible to write with coincidence, like if you write?
Yeah, I think what good stories really do is that they give you the impression that the universe can be understood in a way. And in order for the universe to be understood, it needs regularities, and coincidence is a form of regularity.
Okay. Are you on a daily basis busy with like thinking about the meaning of life and the philosophy about it? Because it's an interesting stuff, and as I hear you talk about it, and it reflects a bit on your work, like how you see
Yes,
it.
I am generally philosophically minded.
Okay.
So I do, and even in my essays, I probably do have a propensity to sort of wax philosophically about things, about life, about death, about whatever, stuff like that.
Uh-huh. Are your essays visible in English or in other
No,
languages? Or what a
no,
pity.
there's some in Spanish, but they're only the political ones, I'm afraid.
Okay, yeah, because loads of people, as you have seen on Instagram and stuff, like your book and they want to read more about you, but it's not easy to like find stuff. So I hope that
No, no,
Charlotte will write a translate new book from you soon.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Unfortunately, it's the fate of small literatures to rely on their translators.
uh-huh. We can talk about now about like your translating job because that's also a big thing that you do. Currently, you are also translating a book. You translate from German. Is how did you like started with the language German and how what fascinates you about this language?
I didn't start it because I wanted to translate from it. I started because I wanted to read the philosophers.
Okay,
So
and what philosophers then?
mostly German idealism, 20th century philosophers, stuff like Nietzsche and Schopenhauer and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when I first started studying it, I did it with that in mind. That is, I wanted to read that. I wasn't interested in translating anything from it. I was barely interested in translating things from English, to tell you the truth, because I don't really like the work that much.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with that. But then the fact is that you can't live as a writer in Romania. It's impossible, especially as a young writer. And translating is the next best thing you can do for money. I started doing
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and can you tell about what stories you translate then from German? Are there also stories with philosophy in it, or
No, no, I
um,
mostly do. So for a long time, I did documentaries, that is things for the Discovery Channel
oh, okay, yeah,
and the History Channel and stuff like that. But then I moved to books, and what I did for about 5 or 6 years is mostly translate children's literature, German children classics like Erich Kästner and stuff like that, Michael Ende.
okay. And do you like it to like translate children books because you write like books for all like adults, I think,
No, I
or
don't.
for all ages, or
I like it because it's easier, I think. If I were to translate philosophy, it would take a long time.
yeah, I think
So
it
I
too.
just do.
Yeah. And how is it for you like to go into the mind of the writer that you translate from?
Well, it's not that different. It doesn't seem like a special thing to do. I mostly have the
Yeah.
text, and I've translated so much now and so many books that I don't really think about it twice. I have the text in front of me, and I know what it sounds like in Romanian, and I just do it, and it has become a mostly automatic thing. I stop sometimes when I don't know the expressions, or when a phrase is more complicated and I need to, or I require more time to get it done. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward process.
Okay. And as you have talked about like the philosophy guys like Schopenhauer and Sebald and Rilke, I want to zoom in on that. Like you've called Sebald, I haven't read something from that, the greatest post-war European writer. Like you've read Rings of Saturn.
Mhm.
Um, what did that book do to you? Like what?
It was just weird. I didn't. I hadn't. It was a
That's the
weird
thing.
book. Yeah, yeah, and you remember it in a sense. After I've read it, I was working for a publishing house then, and I edited it actually. Somebody else had translated
Okay.
it from German, and I hadn't heard about the guy. This was, I think, 10, 15 years ago, maybe. So it was a long time ago. So after I didn't know what to expect, but it was such a weird experience. I had not read anything like it. It was the most melancholically imbued narrative I had ever read, and it wasn't your typical traditional prose. That is, it was just a guy walking through the English countryside and remembering stuff about genocide, stuff about wars in China and stuff. And he would take all of these episodes and sort of introduce them into his walk, and he would develop a narrative out of that. And they were slightly related to each other, but there was no intimate connection between them, just the connection of some form of memory that made them all coalesce. And I loved that. And
Yeah,
and he writes like a 19th century German author, so he has this very old school thing about him.
is that your youth sentiment that comes back when you read that stuff, like the 19th century writers or something
No,
like that?
I do unfortunately like uh, high-minded rhetoric in that way. That is, I do like a stylist if I had to choose.
Yeah, you often return to like Rilke, Yeats, and Chekhov. Can you tell something more about your fascination about those authors?
Well, I'm fascinated with Chekhov because what he does is he manages to be very simple about very complicated things.
Okay.
And that's very rare in prose. In prose, you usually have
Yeah.
to write 100 pages to get to the heart of an idea. He does it in 5. And he gives you the idea and he gives you a narrative solution for it. And he just does it very simply by very, the scene, the characters and the scenes, they're not elaborated in any meaningful way. They just are there. And whenever he writes something, he gets to the heart of it immediately. He doesn't move you around as much. I mean, with Dostoevsky, for example, you need 100 pages just to figure out what is happening.
Yeah, that's why the book is like 700 pages or stuff. I have like all his books, I think. I haven't read any of it, but I still want to. But yeah, I'm a little bit scared to start with it because people say that you have to like read loads of pages to firstly understand what you are reading. Like,
Yeah, that's typical of Russian literature, and you get the characters confused a lot because they use 3 or 4 names for every character and stuff like that. But he's not that difficult. I don't find Dostoevsky to be difficult at all. I find
mhm.
him to be rather straightforward. He just takes a long time to do it.
Okay, and you've mentioned the feeling of melancholy before, but not detached. Do you like, is it easy to combine that feeling? Like, how do you
No,
achieve that balance?
no, it's not easy. So, melancholy is generally somewhat cold because in melancholy, you feel disengaged from the world.
Hmm.
But I don't. So Sebald does that very well. His characters are always alienated somehow. That is, there's reality and they're moving through it, but they don't feel any connection. And I do like melancholy for the distance it gives you. That is, if you have a melancholy voice in prose, you can watch things from afar and describe them as if they don't belong to you. But I'm also very much in favor of narrative warmth, so I have to combine the two. That is, I do not like a melancholy that is so detached that would make me love my characters less.
Yeah. And as I hear you talk about this, do you have the feeling like that literature has an ethical task or only a aesthetic one, like the
So
feeling
when I
of reading, like the how do I say that, like floating with the words and like have that feeling,
Mhm.
or has it really an ethic task
No, I'm
or
bored.
combination?
I'm bored with authors that are mainly rhetorical. That is, I'm bored with authors that concern themselves mainly with style. When I first started writing with Prita, I thought literature should be mainly descriptive. That is, it can be lyrical a little bit, it can be rhetorical a little bit, but it should show you the world as it is without any ethical implications. I've now changed my mind about that. I think it should it should be descriptive, but at the same time, it should work as an ethical instrument. That if that is, if I write a book and there's a slight chance that it might change somebody's life for the better, then I would prefer it.
Okay, yeah. You like if it's just one person, it's enough. Like I understand. Yeah. Did maybe a strange question, but did literature change something for you in your youth, like in that period for you, like the thing you are mentioning now, that you want to like give that special feeling to someone? Did it had that same feeling for you in your youth
No, I
with
think
some
what it
book?
did, gave me it gave me the vocabulary to understand myself better.
Okay,
If it did,
yeah.
yeah, that it did. It gave me some concepts, some feelings that I hadn't lived, some
Mm-hmm.
words that I hadn't heard of, and I used those things to sort of explain myself to myself in a better way.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one because I have read that you like teach other people, like you are a teacher also, like with creative writing. Does is that still the
No, I've taught. This was my last year teaching. I've done it for about 6 years, and I really like doing it for a while. I
okay.
tried teaching creative writing, but I don't think you can teach it, to be honest.
But
It's
you did it like 6 years.
no, but
But that is the question you
yeah,
the answer you got, yeah.
yeah. I don't think you can teach it. I think the only writers that come out of creative writing schools are the ones that get into it.
Yeah, but it's like what you mentioned before. There are loads of authors that write with structures and stuff, and I think in creative writing, loads of people teach students to like use structures and stuff. And is that the thing that you mean? Like you don't need
No, I think you can't
structures or
teach.
stuff?
No, you can't teach structures. My feeling is that there is a very intimate connection between the voice of the narrator, the experience of the author, and the structure of the work he's doing. That is, they're not easily disassemblable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I'm gonna ask a difficult question, but what skills or habits do you consider non-negotiable for anyone who wants to be who wants to write seriously, like a book as you have written?
Just essentially two of them. That is, read a lot, read more than you need, read all the time. And the second one would be uh, develop a sort of permanent dialogue with your inner self,
Okay.
something like that.
Mm-hmm. Like, has your identity yourself have changed in the years that you have written loads of stuff?
Yeah, it has. I've become more disillusioned, and
Okay.
my voice is heavier, I think, with melancholy now than it used to be.
Uh-huh. Do you find that feeling like a good feeling, or do you find, yeah, how do you experience that?
Uh, I wish it would be as easy for me to be happy as it used to be.
Hmm,
But
yeah.
that's not that I think no longer possible. It has made me probably wiser.
Okay. And uh today, like if you have the question, what are you mostly attracted about in literature? Is it the essays? Is it the fiction, the translation? What drives you the most?
No, it's the fiction, but what I like in fiction is the richness of life, the
Okay.
richness of material life, the richness of erotic life, the richness of thinking in
It's
it.
a
All
really
the
open world to discover in fiction. You can like write about whatever you want, yeah.
hmm
Do you find that the most open form of like writing fiction is that for you the most open way?
I like the novel still. I think you can fit anything into a novel.
Okay.
You can do philosophy in a novel, you can do description, you can do vulgarity, you can do comedy, you can basically fit all of those in, and it somehow works. I don't think you can do it in short stories because you're limited by the length, and you're not able to do it in essays or in philosophy. But in novels, you can just put anything that works in there, and sometimes it just works, and you don't know why.
Okay, and what about the poetry you've written in like your first years? Do you still think about it, or do you want to do something with it, or?
No. I've mostly, I think I've deleted all of it, or most of it, because it
You've
was,
put it in the litter bin.
yeah. I threw it away or burned it because it was so bad. Sometimes I regret it because I don't remember everything I've written, and I wish I would still have the text to see how stupid I was back then. But maybe it's for the best.
Yeah, and do you have like in Romania, do you have some people who like read the things that you like write, or do you do it all on yourself?
You mean before I publish them?
Yeah.
Yes, I have friends that do it for me. After I've met Charlotte, I also give them to her.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I talk about everything I write a lot before I publish it because I want to make sure I get every note right.
Yeah, and are you currently busy with like you are translating a book, but are you also busy with like a new fictional work, like a novel?
Yeah. I always have more ideas than I have time to do them in.
I understand that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. It's late
And
capitalism.
can you tell something more about that book, or is it really in like the
No,
first stage? You're not obligated for
no,
to talk about it.
no, I don't feel obligated. I would like to write a bigger novel about the world from Prita. I would like to do that.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
Prita is very slim and it focuses on a character and a few other side characters. And it doesn't go into full descriptive mode about the entire Weltanschauung, about the entire world that the character is coming from. So I would like to dedicate a novel to the very backward, very poverty-ridden, but also very rich in life world that character came from.
Okay, and
So I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that though.
are you like do you want to, it's not an easy question, do you want to like do the same things you've did with your debut Prita Barsacu, or have you learned some stuff that you want to change like in your new novel? What
Yeah,
do
I've
you?
learned how to better control the narrative voice, I think. And I've
Okay.
learned not to rush to conclusions. Pizza is a young man's book, and I see it. I don't know if readers see it, but I sometimes see it because I would phrase things differently, or I would phrase certain truths differently and stuff like that. But what I would like to do is give a more historical, material sense of that world, the kind of place it was, how the sun shone in it, and stuff like that.
Okay, and as you say that right now, are you a writer that like walks in the streets and like observates stuff and like wants to give a meaning to that? Or
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah, I do. I want to portray people in their full complexity. I think if somebody were to ask me what I want most from prose is that is to
Yes.
take the most complex people available and show them in all their contradictions, in all their stupidity, in all their naivety, and fully show them as they are, but also
Mhm.
make them interesting because sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and do you talk a lot then with people? Do you have lots of conversations with them, like to know, like if you see someone and you think, oh, that person is interesting or stuff, do you like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
do
I
you
do
do?
talk. I do talk, but I don't use them. So I
Yeah,
don't, I
I'm
won't
gonna take you for my
yeah,
next novel.
yeah, I won't specifically go to a person just because they're narratively interesting. I won't do that. But I'm generally gregarious, and I like talking to strangers. And I would get into conversations. And what I generally do is that if a line stays with me, then I'm probably going to use it. A way of expressing themselves, a piece of dialogue, stuff like that.
That's a very interesting thing that also inspires me, like to think about that, because I'm very interested in like the brains of the
Hmm.
human beings, and like it's so and that's what I liked a lot in your first book, like the human the human brain, and how you like
Hmm.
put that in a book. It's really well done, and I'm really curious about your next book. And you need to push Charlotte to like
Yes,
bring it
I
out
should.
quickly, because yeah, you have loads of fans in Belgium. I have a last question for you, Julian. We've mentioned like Sebald and Yeats and Rilke, but if I'm gonna ask you like, as today, what writers do inspire you, or you are fascinated about and you want to tell something more about to the people who are watching?
I have. Well, I've stopped teaching, but
Mm-hmm.
I do keep some private courses, some private
Okay, yeah.
reading clubs, as it were. And I've reread Kafka, which I've always loved. And
Mm-hmm.
this year I've read Joseph Roth's Radetzky March, which I think it's probably, what is that? Ah, Franz Kafka. I see. The Trial in America and the what's the one? The Castle, I suppose. So you have all three novels.
Metamorphosis,
Yeah,
The Castle, The Trial, America, and yeah, The
yeah.
Trial.
There, I think I like the Trial probably best.
Yeah,
All three of his novels are unfinished. The Castle is in a weird state. It's clearly unfinished. With the Trial, you do get a sense of an ending. And
uh-huh.
the last 30 pages from the Trial, I think, are bar none one of the best in world literature.
Hey, wow, yeah. I haven't read them, but as you talk about it, I have like those books right in front of me, so I want to start it.
You
You've
should.
also mentioned another author after Kafka. Which one was it?
Joseph Roth.
Okay, yeah, and Radetzky Mars, right?
Yeah, yeah. But that's, I think it's, if I had to choose one novel to go on a deserted island with from the 20th century Europe, it would probably be that one. It's just a perfect novel. There's nothing quite like it.
Okay, and why do you find this one a perfect novel for
Well,
you?
it's a story about it. Mario Vargas Llosa called it the best political novel he knew. But I didn't like it because of its political aspect. I liked it because uh, Joseph Roth has a very, very deep understanding of human nature,
Mm-hmm.
and all his characters are perfectly fleshed out. And he gives them weird, very particular traits that you have to study human beings a lot to sort of be able to put in a book and make believable. And I love that about him. And he also talks about decay in a sense, about the decay of communities, the decay of family, the decay of empire. And that's also a wonderful aspect of it.
Yeah, do you like all the stuff from Roth?
Well, I've read three, I think. Yov, which is Job, really, which is another beautiful novel. I think it's one of his first. The Radetzky March, and the other one I read in German, I think it's Kapuzinengrift. That is the crypt of the Capucins or something. I'm not really sure
Yeah.
what the English title is. The last one I mentioned is a continuation of the Radetzky March, and they're all three of them glorious, but there's nothing like the Radetzky March, I think.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have like one or two books from Roth, but yeah, I want to do my filter away and show you my bookcase. I have loads of books and I can't read them all at the same time. So
Oh, nobody can.
yeah,
No
so
way.
yeah, put your head away, like as you can see.
Yes, I haven't read half of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that. It's like the same at my place. So, yeah, this was a conversation, Julian. It was really inspiring for me. I'm honored that you wanted to be my guest on this podcast. I really want to thank you for this.
Oh, thank you as well. It
Yeah,
was great talking to you.
it was really inspiring, like how you talk about philosophy and like how you see writing and stuff. It was like magnificent. So I really want to thank you with that. I also want to like wish you loads of luck with your translation and your next novel. I hope that Charlotte will translate a book
Oh,
fast
she will. Yes.
and that we can read it. So, yeah, I want to wish you a very good evening and maybe see each other next time.
Well,
Or
with my next book, we'll hear each other again, I suppose.
perfect. Okay, Julian, thank you. Bye
So
bye.
thank you as well.